How's it going, my friend? It is Danny here from ProjectManaverse.com, real world technical project management for beginners. And in this video, I'm going to explain how to determine or decide the RAG status of your project, the red, amber, green status of your project. So first of all, let's start with that. What is a RAG status of a project? Well, a RAG status basically indicates the health of your project or the chances of success of your project. And we call it a RAG status because it's an acronym for red, amber, green, like a traffic light. So a red project means the project is in a lot of trouble. An amber status means it's going all right, but there's a little bit of risk there. And a green status means that everything is fine. And as far as if you keep doing what you're doing, you should deliver to your agreed success criteria with no problem within the budget that's been allocated to you. So that's what it is. A RAG status will determine the health of your project, and we do it as a traffic light system. So red is the worst case, green is the best case, and the amber status is somewhere in between. Now, why do we use a RAG status first of all? Well, a couple of reasons. Number one, it's a very, very effective and efficient communication tool. So rather than give a big description of my project and what's going on and all the risks and issues and all that kind of stuff, I can just give you a color. And with that color, you can instantly get a rough sense of how well the project is doing. It's very fast, very effective. All you need to do is just glance at that RAG status and you can get an idea of what's going on with it. So red, amber, or green. So number one, it's an effective communication tool. And it's very handy because often with, especially portfolio management, so let's say you're a portfolio manager or you're a program manager or you've got a head of a department and you've got lots of projects in a portfolio and you want to get a status update for all your projects. If you can just see which ones are green, which ones are red, which ones are amber, obviously you know which ones to prioritize in terms of focus and attention. You want to help the red projects first of all, get them out of trouble. So if you can just quickly glance at all your projects as a portfolio manager and see, right, well, I've got 2 red projects, I've got 3 amber ones, and I've got 7 green ones. You're going to go straight to the red projects to find out what's going on and spend your time there rather than spending your time talking about the green projects. Because if the project is green, project manager is doing a good job, it's ticking along nicely and it's likely to succeed. But if you've got your red projects, a red status means it's pretty unlikely that project is going to be a success unless you change something, unless you get it out of green get it out of the red status. And when you have to get a project from red to amber, then amber to green, basically you need a set of actions and a set of timelines for those actions to get it back to the green status. And that is what's called a path to green or a route to green. You'll hear that expression a lot because that's what you'll get asked if your project is amber or red. The senior people will say, right, what's your path to green? What are the action steps to get that project back to green, get it to a nice safe place again? Okay, so that's what a RAG status is, and that's why it's important. So as a project manager, how do you determine what your RAG status is? Well, I'm going to give you 3 techniques to do this, and you can use either one. There's probably more out there as well, but hopefully this will help you to determine it because it can be tricky, can be subjective sometimes. There's no real correct, perfect way of doing it, but these tools should help you. So the first method is to break down the project into categories and then RAG each of those categories, and then you can get an overall status from those categories. So you break it down, and the common way to break it down is number one, the progress. So how is the progress of your project compared to your plan? Are you behind schedule? Are you on track, or are you ahead of schedule? So that will be a status in its own right. So if you're pretty much all on track with all your key milestones, you'd have a green progress status. That's category number one. Category number 2 is your costs. How are your costs doing? Are you on budget? Are your actuals tracking to what you forecasted, or are you over budget, or are you under budget? Sometimes being under budget can be a bad thing because as sometimes projects or departments are allocated a certain amount of money and they're expected to use up that money by the end of the year. And if you keep coming under budget, then next year they'll say, right, you're very good at coming under budget, so we're not going to give you as much money next year because you keep underestimating how much you're going to spend. So it is quite important to stay on budget, not be, a little bit under budget is great, but you certainly don't want to be over budget, because that's when the real problems come in. So the cost is the next category. So are you over budget? Are you under budget? Again, you can give yourself a RAG status just from the cost aspect. The next category is risks and issues. How are your risks and issues? Do you have lots and lots of issues, lots and lots of risks? It's more the issues that are a problem than the risks themselves, because obviously issues are impacting your project now and the risks are just down the line, and not all risks will materialize, especially if you're good at risk management and you're good at mitigating them and mitigating the likelihood and mitigating the impacts as well. But if you have a lot of issues open on your projects and you're firefighting a lot, then you probably want an amber status on your risks and issues, or even a red status. So that's the other category. And the last category is people and resource. So do you have all the resources that you need to be able to deliver your project, or are you blocked? Do you have single points of failure that are off sick and you can't deliver certain aspects? So that's an important one. Not just the resource being available, but also the, let's say, the well-being of the team. Are they overworked? Are they happy? Are they motivated? You can think about that as well. But if you have a green status on your resources, and all, they're very good. If you're red, that probably means you're down a few resources. You don't have everyone you need, or you're going to lose some people. So you need to consider that as well. So those are the 4 key categories to consider. So you can give a status to all those, and then from that you can get an overall status, and that makes it a bit more scientific when you're trying to justify your RAG status to the other stakeholders. You can say, yeah, my project is amber, my costs are green, my people are green, but I've got a lot of issues open and I'm actually behind on some of my key milestones, so I'm going to say I'm amber. So that's one way of doing it. Or you could be, if everything is red in those categories, and obviously your project is red. If they're mostly green, you could argue that your project is green. So that's the first way of doing it. The next way of doing it is similar in that you break down the overall project, but you actually break it down in terms of delivery. So with IT projects, you often have to kind of carve things out into sub projects. So let's give you an example. Let's say you're doing a software upgrade, but as well as the software upgrade, you're going to do a database upgrade, you're going to do a database migration, you're going to build some reconciliations. So you can probably just break out your project into certain technical areas and technical sub projects, and you can give each of those RAG status. And again, same principle applies. If all of them are green, then your overall project is green. If you've got a couple of red ones and a couple of green ones, maybe your overall project is amber. If they're all amber, your project's going to be amber. So another way of doing it, another lens of looking at it. Now, the third technique you can apply, is through gut feel, I call it. And you can basically give your gut feel as a project manager what the overall status is. Now, the trouble with this is kind of subjective, and you need some experience as a project manager before you can do this effectively. But once you've done a lot of projects, you've seen it all, you've heard it all, you get a sense in your gut as to whether this project is going to be a success or not. And the way to do it is think about your final objective, that final go live date. How likely are you to hit that date and succeed in your project? If you know in your heart you're on track and it's going to happen, you can call it green. If you're starting to feel a bit dodgy about it, maybe an amber. And if you think, right, this project is in trouble, I know I've done a lot of projects and this is a bad situation to be in, we need to do something to get it back, people need to realize we need support on this project, you call it amber. Again, I would recommend you get some experience behind you, under your belt, before you do it by gut feel. But it's an option, and it's a lot faster than trying to kind of break it all down. But yeah, that's basically it. So I'll go through those 3 techniques again, then I'll wrap up the video. So technique number 1 is break down the project into 4 categories and RAG each of those individually. So number 1 was your progress. So how well is your project progressing? Are your milestones on track, or are they behind or ahead of schedule? Category 2 was costs. So are you under budget? Are you over budget? Are you just going nicely, spending as much as you thought you would do, tracking to your forecast and your actuals? Are they balancing? Category number 3 is the risks and issues. Do you have a lot of issues open on your project? Do you have a lot of risks? And category number 4 is resource and people. So do you have the resources you need? Are they at risk? And is everyone happy on the project? That was method number one. Method number 2 was breaking down the project into sub-projects. So you might have a piece of work to do on upgrading the software, a piece of work to upgrade the infrastructure, a piece of work to remediate some downstream systems perhaps, or a sub work stream to do some reconciliations. You can RAG each of those individually and get a total sense by putting them all together for your overall RAG status. And then technique number 3 was gut feel, and that is just basically thinking about, right, what is the status of this project in my heart? Is it green? Is it fine? We've got nothing to worry about. Is it red? Are we in trouble? Or is it kind of somewhere in between? And again, I recommend you have some experience behind your belt before you approach that one. One thing I will say about assigning a RAG status, you've got to give some kind of evidence behind it. So if you have an amber status or a red status, you've got to at least have some risk and issues open that you can link and say a call is the driver of that overall status, or you've got to have some milestones that are amber or at risk as well. If you can't say your project is amber if you don't have any risk or issues and all your milestones are on track, it doesn't make any sense. So you've got to link it to something, give some kind of rationale and driver as to that RAG status, either through risks and issues or through progress, your milestones. Okay, that's the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Give it a thumbs up if you did, and if you want to see more videos like this one, hit that subscribe button. Until tomorrow, please take care.